right. Good evening, everyone. Here, let me bring this over here so it looks like I'm looking at you. Welcome to the Select Board meeting, Monday, June 28th, 2021 at 7 p.m. You'll notice tonight that we are one Select Board member down. He is off vacationing and relaxing, so wish him well. We're still continuing to meet via Zoom. And let's see. We'll get these posted up on the webpage and YouTube channel. And I think that's good. All right, so call to order at 7:01 p.m. There's the announcements.
Are you doing notes, Margaret, or?
No, I'm gonna, I'll ask Mary to review the tape and do the minutes from that.
All right, we'll make it nice and short for her then, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So on the announcements, meeting of the Berlin Select Board, generally recorded. Your voice, image, notations, messages, phone number may be recorded. All right, first up, approval of the June 21st open session minutes.
The June 21st and June 28th minutes will come to the board at your meeting of July 12th.
Perfect. Any correspondence there, Mrs. Nadowitz?
Nothing that I won't otherwise address in my TA report. So,
okay. All right. We have the most awesome Julie Lee and June Poland in our attendance. Are there any general public comments from either of those ladies? All right, I see no. Notice I'm like rushing this along. So as they were probably like moving towards the mouse, I'm like, yeah, no, we're moving on. All right, so we have a hearing at 7:15, but James is not here. So Margaret, do you want to pop into your TA report and we can take care of everything else and then backtrack?
Yes, I can definitely do that. I should have pulled it out of order before, but let's see. Okay. First of all, because I always start with this, COVID vaccines are still being offered. Go to vaxfinder.mass.gov to find convenient locations and hours of operations of vaccine sites near us.
And get your vaccine and sign. Don't forget to sign up July 1st for the win up to $1 million.
That's right. Vax-A-Million begins
Vax-A-Million.
July 1st. So the town office building is now open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. weekdays to allow for business transactions and evening meetings should boards and committees choose to hold in-person meetings. We have shifted from mandatory face coverings in town buildings to an advisory, and unvaccinated or partially vaccinated individuals are asked to please wear a face mask in indoor settings when you're unable to socially distance. We don't want you getting ill. Let's see, I'm going to skip down. There's plenty more COVID stuff to cover, but HR and benefits. Okay, so the preliminary interview panel conducted several interviews last week for 2 consecutive days. In my TA report, I say I'm going to discuss next recommended steps, including any required transition period. So first and foremost, the town's established policies and procedures and the Town Governance Act itself calls for the recruitment and screening of candidates, of suitable candidates for consideration and appointment as department heads by the select board. That is my charge to actually put together or coordinate the recruitment and screening of the candidates. Our personnel policies and procedures further says that the recruitment, selection, and promotion of candidates is based solely on job-related criteria, and that the methods of selection may include written examination, interview, oral interview panel, practical test, evaluation of experience and training, etc. But that just reiterates that the town has a qualifications-based hiring process, and the preliminary interview panel did a great job doing their due diligence in screening several of the candidates for this particular position. In the end, the panel recommended that one individual move forward to the select board for an interview, and that would be a public interview. And I am waiting to hear back from that candidate. All the other candidates have been notified of the status of the process at this point. I have left the door a bit open for those candidates in the event that the individual changes his mind about the position, or for any other reason the board is unable to conduct the final interview with that candidate. So my request or recommendation was that the board do this final interview on Tuesday, July 6th, as early as you'd like it. I'll also ask that the board convene an executive session that same night after your open session to discuss a transition period in that position. I don't know if you want me to share any other information, but that's the status that we have right now. So I'd like the board's consideration in moving forward with that final interview should the applicant confirm that he'd like to move forward.
Is that good for you, Peg?
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay.
Well, how early would you be able to meet, Peg?
I'm home, so I get
Oh.
off at 4:30. So it could be
Okay.
as early as 5. I don't know Scott's schedule though.
Right. Guess we'll have to wait and see. When
Yeah.
is he due back?
The
Third?
third.
Yeah.
The 3rd. Okay, good.
So I can run I can run that by him, find out what time he'd be available for that. Okay, next is, I only see two attendees, so I'm moving on. All right, so last week, thank you very much, Peg, for coming in to sign the paperwork for the ARPA funds. It's actually called, oh gosh, it's now called Coronavirus Fiscal Recovery Funding. So what they do is they change the name of the federal act when it gets to the state, and then they create this new name for this pot of money. So this was under the American Rescue Plan Act, and we, as well as every other municipality, stand to receive a significant amount of funding due to COVID. And some of that funding, I've mentioned this before, some of that funding could potentially be related to certain revenue losses during COVID. So June and I were just discussing this today, and the administrative finance team is going to be scrubbing all of the bulletins we've gotten so far. We're collecting them to find out what our options are, and we can bring those to the board and FinCom. The next thing I'd like to mention is under grants. So we have an opportunity to apply for a Maya Wellness Grant in which funding could be secured for fitness equipment to outfit the room in this facility that public safety has asked to outfit for a fitness center. I have reached out to both chiefs asking if they would allow consideration of other town employees utilizing that room during off-work hours for health and wellness. I think Chief Galvin replied that he doesn't have any concerns. Chief Clark said he'd run that by his personnel. I think this is a good opportunity to get some funding for some decent fitness equipment. The next item is good news, Tolman property. The property closed last week. We have received almost $170,000, a check for almost $170,000 in back taxes that were paid off as part of the transaction. Now, it's really important to be aware that this check that we received for the back taxes is going to be reverting to our free cash. This is one of those so-called one-time revenue sources that contributes to our free cash balance. So when our free cash is $1 million, over $1 million, and it seems to be exponentially growing by these one-time revenue sources, it's important to keep in mind that this isn't money just being turned back and recurring every single year. These are back taxes paid off and it's done. So when the time comes for free cash, we're going to try to have a little bit more of an analysis of the non-recurring revenue sources that have contributed to free cash. The next is the River Bridge development agreement. And the working group, the subgroup, has invited the Sennies to a meeting. Sennies have confirmed their availability to meet on July 14th to discuss possible modifications to the development agreement, and we would bring those back to the town. The next item is what used to be called Connect Wellness is now Candle Mass LLC. They have confirmed and are posting for their virtual community outreach meeting, which will be held on July 15th at 6 p.m. We're going to be posting their public notice. It's going to be via Zoom. There will be a meeting ID and password required, or the meeting can be for those folks who don't have easy internet access. There is a toll-free number, 877-853-5257, a toll-free number where folks would be able to call in to the Zoom meeting. Again, that's going to be July 15th at 6 p.m. It's a virtual Zoom community outreach meeting. I met with two MassDOT officials last week to preliminarily discuss Route 62 in the context of a transportation improvement plan project application. This was a very preliminary discussion. They talked about their portal or their tool. It's called the, what is it called? I think it's called Mass IT or something. Oh, Map It, it's Map It. Where you can actually input your interests, your project interests, and that would be a very first step. They did seem to discourage, and I'll summarize this in writing, but they did seem to discourage an entire Route 62 corridor project from Gates Pond to Five Corners because it would be entirely cost prohibitive for the town. It would be in the many, many, many millions of dollar range. When we broke it apart and identified 3 areas where we've heard from public safety officials from the community where there are issues, one was Gates Pond, the other was the Village Center, particularly Pleasant Street and that area, and the third was Five Corners. When we broke that out, there were no specific numbers given, but just to do the Village Center, Ann Sullivan of MassDOT said, that project alone could cost $6 million. So the engineering costs, that would be sidewalks, pedestrian crossings and things like that, and other things. The town's engineering costs could be almost $1 million in that case. So even that is really pushing it. So I'm going to summarize in writing my conversation with them so we can at least have an informed discussion as we move forward. But a good first step might actually be the Village Center strategic plan. I'm sorry if I'm rattling on. I'm looking at the attendees. And
It's just Julie.
your appointment's still not here, so I'm going.
Nice.
So Village Center strategic plan. The core group of stakeholders met with CMRPC last week with Kerry Salwa to discuss next steps. So the next steps, as far as I could tell from that meeting, there would be a walkthrough with Mass Development and the Mass Office on business development, because a lot of this is geared toward economic success, in the Village Center. There would be a broader stakeholders meeting scheduled, so people that live in and around the Village Center, people that have land interests in the Village Center, and others would be invited as the discussions grow. And then there would be community survey, at least one community survey, and broader community information sessions before the plan is finalized. So we're going to be meeting again in mid-July, and I'll be bringing reports back to the board. Chris, do you have anything to add to that? Chris was there too.
No, I think you covered most of it. I think we did have a discussion on whether or not to have a survey. And I thought it was important myself, just because people want to know, if they don't hear about it, they're going to be very disappointed and say, well, where did this come from?
Mhm.
And
Agreed.
so even if they don't fill out the survey, we can say, we
You had
sent
the
you a
opportunity.
survey.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. And then the final thing I have tonight is a reminder that the Select Board and Board of Health will be meeting jointly on July 12th at 7:30 p.m. They're going to have an appointment with RCAP Solutions out of Leominster to discuss RCAP Solutions private well testing program that's going to be offered to Berlin and Bolton at the same time early this fall. And then that appointment or that presentation is going to be followed by Mary Jude Pigsley of DEP. She's the regional director, to discuss DEP's PFAS private well testing program and the implications of that.
So Margaret, I had a quick question.
Sure.
For the community outreach on
Yeah.
July 15th at 6:30, is it possible to use the training room now that, restrictions are a little bit better in the town offices? Could we use the training room downstairs where there's like a big screen and kind of host it there in case people don't have internet access or they don't want to pay for calling in and getting hit with like a long distance call?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. The community outreach meeting has been posted as a virtual meeting. So
all
if
right.
it's going to be a virtual meeting,
Okay,
we'd have to make other accommodations to assure that the virtual component is the primary
okay, all
component
right,
of it. Okay,
okay. No worries. While you were chatting, I'm thinking, but no biggie. All right.
okay.
So it is 7:17. I know that our friend Julie Lee is here, but our appointment for the gentleman is not here.
We have a few other
So,
business items, Peg, if you'd like to.
okay,
You might even want to ask Julie if she knows whether he's coming.
Oh, let me promote Julie. Yeah, I never got confirmation from Jim on that.
She might be able to handle it.
no. Julie, if you can hear us, you're on mute. Yeah. Well, I can keep an eye on her and see when she pops up. Do we want to scoot down to end of year appropriation transfers, reserve fund transfers, contingency line item transfers?
There are none. There are none today.
No.
No action required
Right.
today on those.
All right, how about vote to ratify support for shared bucket truck
Oh,
grant
gosh.
award?
I don't think I announced that. So, okay, then here's the announcement. So the town applied along with the town of Clinton through CMRPC for a community compact efficiency and regionalization grant for $178,000, and we have been awarded that grant to purchase and share a bucket truck between the towns of Berlin and Clinton. Berlin will be the lead town on this and will garage the truck. There's going to be a memorandum of agreement that's put in place for shared maintenance costs and insurance costs and operation schedules. So my request this evening is that the select board ratify, I know I've been mentioning this for months, but the select board ratify its support of this grant award.
I
Give
make a
him-
motion to do so.
And I second your motion. And can we have a vote?
So it's so funny with two people.
I know. Go ahead, Chris, you go first.
Keith, aye.
Stone eye.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. So Julie left. So we'll scoot down to vote to execute the Assabet Regional Housing Consortium Memorandum of Agreement.
Yes, I uploaded that to the board's agenda folder for this evening. And I did ask the member towns representatives to confirm that this is indeed in its final form, and it is. So this requires a signature of the full board. And just for everyone's information, this allows the town to participate in the Assabet Regional Housing Consortium, where the member towns work with Metro West Collaborative Development as consultants in monitoring and supporting affordable housing activities. This has been a long goal of the town to have assistance in this regard to assure that units stay on the subsidized housing inventory. Now, you'll probably recall that the town appropriated $12,000 from the Affordable Housing Fund at annual town meeting in order to support year one of this agreement. This would provide for plenty of hours of monitoring and local support startup activities. Metro West does need to create files on all of our units and things like that. Additionally, the agreement requires a $350 per year administrative payment to the lead town of Hudson to cover all the administrative costs that they have as the lead community. And I strongly recommend that the select board support signing this agreement.
Well, Chris, hats off to you. You were kind of like the driving force behind this, so I
Well,
turn the
so
motion over to you.
So was Lynn and Tim Wheeler.
I know, but they're not here. So
Well,
thank you to Lynn
I'll
and
take
Tim.
all the credit.
There you go. Take all the credit. You know what? When you're there, take all the credit. It's good to go.
And so I would make a motion to execute the Assabet Regional Housing Consortium. Consortium
It almost sounds
Memorandum
like
of Agreement.
And I will second that motion. And since there are no questions, we'll take a vote.
Keith, aye.
Stone eye. There you go, Mrs. Nadowitz.
Newest member, Berlin.
I do have just a question for Margaret about having Tim Wheeler appointed as our the person that attends the meetings.
Yeah.
Did he ever answer you, Margaret? Because I never heard.
So he indicated his willingness to attend as much as he can, but I think he was just, I don't want to say reluctant because I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he just wanted to be sure that he was the right person for it. And he also mentioned, and I think I agree with this, that the town, now that we're going to be members, every other member community has an affordable housing trust. So we should be looking at different mechanisms. And if we do create an affordable housing trust, it would likely be a member of that who could participate in this. Meanwhile, Chris, I'll continue to go as much as I can. And Tim said he would try and share duties.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Margaret, any word from Amy on the earthwork update?
No, so I'm going to just go ahead and give you a recap of what we ended with last week. All right, so the Earthworks Advisory Committee, Peg attended that as well. They met and discussed the Highland Ridge earthwork permit. They did agree that, well, they did recognize that the developer needs to come to the select board as the earthwork board for a permit. However, they also expressed concerns that Russo, the hauler who is bringing certain materials up to the site, it's my understanding that he had been contracted by the former owner of the property, and his work was to continue through now. So the Earthwork Advisory Committee made a specific recommendation for approval for Russo to continue importing certain materials for work to be done daily until the final application hearing and decision by the select board. And they laid out the materials that they recommended Russo should continue to haul. Additionally, I did some research after having an initial communication with Amy. There were some provisions during COVID that allowed permits to be tolled. I don't think this is a case where the entire permit should be tolled because there was a change of hands on the property. So I think the new property owner has an obligation to come before the board. However, the permit that was renewed by the former property owner, it was 10 Chris Realty, Chris Slade, that tolled permit renewal expiration date would be extended until February 28th, 2022. So in essence, I think what I am saying is that I agree with the Earthwork Advisory Committee, and I don't actually think that Russo's activity is being done outside of a permit. So that's where I stand, and my recommendation is in support of the Earthworks Advisory Committee's recommendation.
So do you need a vote?
I would love to ask the board for your support if you'd be willing to vote your support of that.
Ms.
Okay.
Keefe, do you have any questions?
No, but I would like to make the motion to support Margaret's recommendation on the Earthworks Advisory's recommendation.
And I will second that motion.
All right. Keith,
And,
aye.
yep, and Stone Eye.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Boom chakalaka. All right. So zipping down to new business. Document review for the June item submission. And then we had talked about trying to figure out how to kind of like call volunteers and maybe bringing a couple boards to people's attention every month. So I picked randomly, I picked historical and cable advisory because I know as I troll through Facebook, there's always constant complaints about Spectrum/Charter. So as I was talking with Margaret and told her what I was doing with historical, she suggested I reach out to June Miller, who is now the new chair of historical. So I did. I congratulated on her chairness and asked her if she could review review the document. And so she had a couple comments to that. So I can add those. It won't change the content of it much, just a little bit more historical information on it. So that's like the only change that I have to the, calling all volunteers.
All right. I can make a motion to approve both the June item submission and the document to call for volunteers.
All right, and I will second. And can we have a vote?
Keith, aye.
Stone Eye. All right, I will get the June submission out to Jan, and then I will tinker with the volunteer one, and I'll shoot it by you guys first, just so that you could see it, and then I will get that out there. But yeah, if we can pick, and honestly, I just randomly picked
No,
those.
I actually trust you. If you wanted
Okay.
to go ahead and submit it,
Right.
go ahead.
Right.
I'm sure it's fine.
And if there are other, committees, again, this was like throw a dart. Laptop was sitting, on my lap under a tree one day and figured I'll pick two. So, if there's any other
Mhm.
boards that we want to try to highlight, maybe there's like a pecking order. I figured I could send them to, send that article to Powderhouse News as well.
Yeah.
And get that out there and then just try, because I know that's one of June's, what she wants to do is communicate and get that out there. So I told her that we'd support her in any way that we could on communication.
Great.
PEG Energy Committee is meeting tomorrow night. Maybe that'd be a good opportunity to talk with them about filling vacancies on.
All right, energy is up next. Okay, Chris, are there any one of yours that you want to go for, like calling all volunteers?
I can ask Lynn if
Okay.
she would want to highlight the ZBA in the item.
Okay, all right, cool. That would be good.
And I can also ask the Council on Aging. I think they have a meeting tomorrow, correct?
Oh, good.
4:00.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah, anything that
Maybe
we
not
could-
all at once, but we could do them,
Yeah,
at some point.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And just to try and get that out. All right, so we are down to board questions, comments, and liaison updates. Ms. Keefe.
I actually don't have anything because COA is meeting tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ZBA is meeting next week, I think.
Okay.
They're usually on Wednesday night.
All right, and Earthworks, well, Margaret told you what was going on with there. Energy, we're meeting tomorrow night to discuss the aggregate costs. And will we have anything back from is it Beth Greenblatt? What's her first name?
Yeah, the agreements are signed. The board
Right.
authorized me to sign those agreements. Beth has them, and so those are signed.
Okay, all right.
Did you decide on the aggregation?
No.
Not yet.
No, but Denise Allard from Colonial Energy, they manage the aggregation contract for us. They've been asked to provide indicative pricing for tomorrow night, so the Energy Committee could at
Okay.
least review that. She also offered to come to the Energy Committee's meeting if they'd like to talk with her about energy rate trends right now.
Okay.
And then conservation, I think, is next week, and recreation. I'll just be a thorn in Julie's side to make sure that she gets going to ask for money for the 30,000 cultural something fund, and then to make sure that the CPA starts doing a giddy up if we're gonna have a special town meeting.
So I will add, now that you brought up recreation, that I had told Peg that a friend of mine had contacted me about where could she play pickleball, because she has actually been in Florida over the winter and learned how to play pickleball, and she just loves it.
Mhm.
So Peg told me a few places that,
Yep.
which I passed on to her. She also was asking about the tennis courts and
Yep.
having them refurbished. And she said when she was out on the Cape, I think until tomorrow, then she was gonna at some point this week take a ride by the tennis courts. This friend of mine used to be on recreation
Hmm.
years ago. And so, she was wondering how bad it was if they were to play there now. I haven't been down, so, uh,
There's lines and cracks. If you happen to hit a line in a crack, your ball's gonna go that way.
yeah,
There's grass growing up there. I don't know how level the nets are. Last time I went by, they kind of swooped a little
yeah.
in the middle. So
Well,
if
she
you're
might
not,
be, she
yeah, if you're
might
not
be.
competitive, who cares?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I think she may be one who may get on board with helping us
Nice.
to get it moving.
Okay.
So I'll stay in touch with her.
All right. Yeah, and I'll stay in touch with Julie as
Yeah.
well. Margaret, have you heard anything back from the other communities on resurfacing and?
No, I'm still waiting. So there was one community in particular, the town of Sterling, who actually did go out for bids on court upgrades, and it's in a file under pickleball.
You know what? I'll check.
I'm waiting for the bid documents to look through those. I also told Julie that I would give her, I think Julie was going to get the outline from Jackie Marshall. Jackie, I don't know if you
Yep.
remember, she'd put together a big summary on this. So she's going to try to get that. I think I might have a copy of it here, and I'll get that to her along with this year's capital planning request form, capital request form, because these projects would have to go through capital. And then I also suggested, not being familiar with the process that the board went through prior to me getting here with the cultural fund. I guess there was an application process and things. I could only advise Julie to put in a letter of interest to the select board for now, and just get it on the radar. This is, she'd be looking to use the money that recreation turned back from the walking trails that didn't happen. So it's $30,000 cultural funds. So
I'm gonna, I picked up the paper here. Westboro showcases pickleball resources at event. So Northborough, I'll see if I can find a select person in Northborough. It said in Northborough, town meeting voters just approved funding to build new pickleball courts at their community's Ellsworth McAfee Park. So you know what?
I'll contact John.
Yeah, and then yeah, the one in Westboro, it's the Nelson Pickleball Courts, can be found at
My
30
gosh.
at 60 Lyman Street. I'm telling you, you
They-
guys all laughed at me a couple years ago when I'm like pickleball. You're like, oh geez, she fell down the stairs again. What did she do to her head? And now it's like these things are springing up all over the place. Mm-hmm.
All right, that's good.
Can it be played? I guess it can be played inside, correct?
Yes, because Clinton, they were having some of theirs, I think it's St. John's, inside the St. John's Church, they were having some pickleball courts set up.
Would they be able to play it in the First Parish gym?
Probably if you lined it off, because the courts really aren't that big. It's a possibility that could be a lot of fun. Old memories of playing dodgeball in like first and second grade there with your head bouncing off the back wall or the ball. All right. So there is no executive session scheduled for tonight. So before I ask for a motion to go, all right, I lost my bed at 7:35. Definitely it's hot. Stay hydrated. Check on your neighbors, especially the old ones. Make sure that they're good to go. So if there's nothing else, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
All right. Happy, safe 4th, everyone. We'll see you in July. I second it. We'll put it to a vote. Ms. Keefe?
Keith, aye.
Stone eye.